live in a long time. I know it's been a minute since I've been on here. I want to say that I missed you all. Yes, I missed you all. I see the channel is growing. So, yay. You like my content, you like my videos. I see that the video with me walking into Mexico has like done the best because I did some research and while I was trying to plan my trip to go to walk into Mexico, I couldn't find any good videos that really detailed how to do it and how it was done. And so that's how I ended up doing that video or just making sure I posted it on YouTube was because I wanted others who wanted to walk from San Ysidro into Tijuana. I wanted you to know how to at least do that part so that you would be okay with it. So there's kudos to that video. I would say that's my most viral short to date versus even eating at Caesar's, the original Caesar salad. So my name is Shyla Massey, and I am the owner of Glistening July. At Glistening July, we specialize in all things travel related. So what does that mean? That means that we go all over the world to places that I'm interested in traveling to, and we share what we've experienced with others. So um, recently, so I want you to make sure you comment, you like, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. But recently today, the news was revealed by the Transportation Security Administration that Spirit Airlines had shut its doors overnight. And that is like the biggest news that we've had in the US in a long time. And yes, I would even say that it was bigger than Delta choosing to not provide VIP privileges for Congress because we were in a government shutdown and there were issues with TSA. But for Spirit to make the decision that they are shutting their doors, so they halted all planes. Wherever their plane was, Spirit, they halted it. So I'm not for sure if there was a plane out of the country, if they said, hey, we're going to bring the flight attendants back and the pilot to the United States, and then we'll halt the plane in Fort Lauderdale or another hub that they have. But what they did do was they halted it. We had not seen that within the travel industry. I looked it up since April of 2008. So it's been 18 years since in the United States, we've had an airline company shut its doors and say, hey, we abruptly, when I say abruptly, I mean nobody is aware that it's going to close. Hi, Chicken Burger, and hi, Mario. How are you all doing this evening? Thank you for coming in. So, with Spirit shutting its doors, what does that look like for the rest of the industry? And from my perspective, prices are going to go up. Prices are already going up. When we first went into war with the Middle East over gas and Americans got stuck over in Dubai, I'm doing well. Okay, go ahead and tell me your question. When we Americans got stuck in Dubai, it was now they got to get home. And there are procedures you need to take in order to get home from when you're out of the country. The first thing you need to do is you need to sign up for the SMART program. That's when you tell the Secretary of State whenever you leave out of the United States where you're going, where you're staying. Because if there is an emergency, they have the ability to come get you. Now, I've been traveling for many, many years, and I've been a solo traveler for many, many years. When you travel, when I used to travel, when I first traveled at the age of 19, I went to a country in the continent of Africa. Yes, I have a job. And I I had to report to the embassy. And that was before we became technologically advanced. So the Smart Traveler program, when I reported to the embassy told me what was going on in that country when I arrived. So if people would have reported to the embassy when they got stuck over in Dubai and all of that, that would have made their life a little bit easier. Now that it's online, before you travel to a different country, you need to enroll in the SMART program. So now because of that issue in the Middle East, now guess what? Gas prices have gone up. So I was just recently told by someone, and I don't know if this is true, but they are an avid traveler. They said that Delta Airlines has their own refinery because I remember many years ago again when the price of oil had skyrocketed and Delta was the only one that was able to maintain low prices because they had pre-booked, they had negotiated a rate for their fuel that didn't fluctuate during any issues that we were having. So now we have one of the big issues is fuel again. So fuel costs are rising, and that's at the pump, in your car, and on a plane, whatever it may be. If you have not locked in a pre-negotiated rate, if you have a flexible rate that you can charge like we do as like normal US citizens who operate cars, you can basically charge whatever you want based on, how much you're paying for the oil to make a profit, then that's going to impact the airline. With Spirit closing their doors abruptly, now the only low-cost carrier you have is Frontier. And you have JetBlue, you have Southwest, you have United, you have American, you have Delta. Those are like the five main. I think Allegiant still exists, and there are some other ones. But with Spirit closing their doors abruptly, that's going to cause prices to increase. Now, the good steward thing that other airlines said, and with the Transportation Security Administration's basically the head guy, he was like Delta, Southwest, United, JetBlue, they'll get you on a plane. Like they have a special rate to get you from wherever you are. And I think he said under $200, a one-way ticket to get you back home. So that was their solution to begin with. Spirit must have said, I would like to know from a business perspective, what did that meeting with the US government who offered to bail Spirit out, what did that look like? What was said? And we will not only know the story if we are in a business class or someone really dives deep into the transcripts from that business meeting, if it was an open door meeting, or what was said, what was discussed, and what was Spirit not willing to negotiate on the table. But with the rising fuel costs all across the board for cars, for airplanes, for trains, anybody who uses fuel because of our issue, our conflict in Iran, this is going to cause airline tickets to go up. I recently took a trip, and the reason why I took that trip was because I had looked at the plane tickets, and the plane ticket had went up by $600 for the same flight going to the same going to the same area. So if that flight went up and it had no idea of coming back down. So if that flight went up for me leaving in the future, I had to go on my trip where my flight was $600 cheaper. I had to. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't put this trip off until, the summer or in the fall or the winter because of the unknown. There was a period when we first went into that war that the flights were low. Now they know it's summertime, people are buying those higher flights. Prices are going to increase in airline because Spirit is no longer exists. Now, if they come back, they reorganize or restructure, that'll be great for our ecosystem and travel. But if they don't, that's what you can expect. The thing that I will say how I was introduced to Spirit was because I had to go on a business trip and I had to take my children with me. At the time, I had three that were in my home, and I my flight was covered by my employer, but I could not afford to put my children on the flight with me that my employer was covering. Um, I couldn't pay that amount. So what did I end up doing? I ended up driving. And it cost me to go from my city in Ohio to Orlando, Florida, $350 round trip. That was with the gas, and that was all of us. I did a stop in Charlotte, North Carolina. And from Charlotte, I went on to, because Charlotte was the halfway point, I went on to Orlando. And then when we stayed at the Gaylord, I presented at this conference. We came back. I did the same thing. I stopped in Charlotte, North Carolina. Or did I stop? Did I stop long? No, I didn't. I think I drove all the way back because I was ready to go home. But um, when I got back, someone was like, "Why you could have flew on Spirit? Spirit, what's that?" This was many years ago. And they were like, oh, they got tickets for $25 round trip or $50 round trip. You and the whole family could have, gone on Spirit to Orlando. Well, sure enough, I did my own research and I was like, oh, smack. They do have flights for $50 on here on Spirit. And me and the whole family could have went. Now, granted, I would have had to pay for my seat, but when you have minors, you don't have to pay for a seat because they cannot put a minor next to a person that's not, they're the adult they know. They can only do that when the child is a certain age. So that's how I was first introduced to Spirit Airlines, was because I had spent $350 to drive, which was more time, more stress on me versus getting on a plane and flying when we could have packed all our things in one suitcase because my children were young and been there, rented a car or gotten a Lyft or Uber, because by this time we Lyft was out. I believe it was out. I can't remember if I went to Orlando first or San Diego first, but whatever order it was, I know that when I was in San Diego, that's how I took my first Lyft, was because a student I had was like, hey, give me your phone. We're gonna download this app. We're gonna get on the app and we are going to get us a car so we can go everywhere we need to go in the city. Okay, cool, no problem. I don't mind, learning from someone younger than me. But because of that flight with Spirit, it opened up so many doors for not only me, but for my family. I remember sending my son to California round trip for $115, for spring break. I remember that I would fly to Vegas, because I used to work for American Airlines. So I was accustomed to, going to the West Coast for the day and coming back. But with Spirit, it opened up the door for so many more people to see our country, to go to a place that they've never visited at an economical price. Like instead of like just sitting in your house and doing something, just sitting at home, now Spirit opened that door for you to say, hey, I've never been to California. I'm gonna go to California for the weekend. It also opened up the door for the person who's a small business owner. If they needed to meet with a potential company that they wanted to partner with, they could get a flight for real cheap, get on a plane, go out there and handle business and come back. It's probably thousands of stories of people who started off small businesses and they were able to catch a flight on Spirit and close a deal. And now they're a millionaire or multimillionaire, or their business does millions or multi-millions a year because they were able to spend a low amount of money on a flight to get out there to close the deal by any means necessary. So just knowing that this low budget carrier is not here anymore to open the door to inspire someone to travel and see the world and to start off at an economical price. I'm concerned about that. Like, I'm concerned about that. And yes, there are programs out there where you can get a flight and not pay for it or pay for it on a payment plan. But being able to pay $50 to go to Orlando, maybe you can only afford to take your family to Disney for the day. That opens a door to a lot of people, you know. What else about Spirit? It benefited me several times with them being in existence. I have some friends who never have flown Spirit, or they flew Spirit once and they were like, oh, I'll never fly them again. Well, I don't care. Did the plane land me in my destination safely? And did I get back safely? And to date, all of those boxes have been checked yes. So I want to I want to say in the middle of this conversation to make sure you subscribe to this channel, you comment and like. But I do want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say. Let's talk about Spirit Airlines being closed. If they're not in existence anymore. Are they going to come back? Do you think they're going to come back? Like, it's really farewell Spirit right now. Like, what was said in the meeting with the government when they met with the government for the government to give them a buyout. What was said? Like, I want to hear that story. That's not what we're hearing. I want to read the transcript. To be honest with you, what was said that made them say, you know what? No, we ain't gonna take no buyout. We ain't gonna negotiate with you. We just gonna close our doors. Because now they have a lot of assets that they have to sell. They have computers in the cities. They have airplanes. You can paint an airplane, you can spray it, and sell it off to Frontier, another low cost carrier. Like, what are they going to do with the assets that they do have? Are they going to build a museum? Like, they weren't the first low cost carrier. They're not the only low cost carrier in the United States. These are just questions that I have in general about Spirit not being there anymore. Do the people who are out of the country know that they can call American United and Delta and JetBlue and Southwest and ask for a discount, a ticket to come back home? Is that being widely published? I know when I went on United's Instagram page, it was the first thing in their story because I follow United. But if someone is flying Spirit because they just want the experience of leaving, are they knowledgeable about what the government or what other companies have done to lure them in as customers? Because when a company says, you know what, I know this a one-way ticket, I know this last minute, you can pay $200 to fly with us, that's trying to win you in. That's a marketing tactic. It is a good thing to do. It's public relations, but they're trying to win you in as a customer. And so, is this going to help their customer base? Will more people, you know, fly with these other carriers? Are prices going to increase? Do you think prices are going to increase? I'm telling you, prices are going to increase. Every time you take out a competitor, that allows you to increase your price because it limits the number of people who are in your market. So with Spirit, I'm just like, wow, this happened so fast. Like, it just, and when they closed in my location, because I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, I was like, oh man, this is about to affect prices in Cleveland for one. And then two, this is going to affect prices for the other carriers. Like United has a terminal in Cleveland that they have the lease to. Nobody else can lease this terminal. And that terminal goes empty. Nobody talks about that. So they pay the city. So every airport is managed by the city that airport is in. The people who manage that airport are city employees. The people who lease the space, such as the airline companies, they pay the cities to have a desk there. So Spirit must have, when they closed their facility in Cleveland, they must have said, hey, this is what it says in our contract to close our doors here. This is what we're going to give you. Because typically in a commercial lease, there is a clause in the lease that states, if you leave early, this is what you have to prepay. So for them to say that they were leaving in April, mid-April from Cleveland, there was an amount that they paid to the city. And the city has to find the goal, because that's a money generating business for any city. So they have to find another client or customer to take on that spot. So it's just a lot of moving parts with this. And yeah, make sure you follow our channel, Listen in July. Make sure you subscribe, you comment on this video, and like it, because this is a conversation we need to have. I don't know if any of you are travelers. I am an avid traveler. I've been traveling since I was 19 by myself. I just went on a trip by myself recently to another country. And like I previously stated, I had to go on the trip because the prices were increasing. And if I didn't, the price of my flight would increase by $600, just the flight alone. And not to mention, I had to already prepaid for the Airbnb where I was staying at, because I didn't see a lot of U.S. based brands in this specific region of the country that I was going to. Matter of fact, I didn't see a lot of Americans in this country. I saw maybe 3 Americans the whole time I was on my recent trip, and I was shocked. And I don't know if it's because there was previous historical tension, between the United States and this country. And so that's kind of derailed a lot of travel. But one of the Americans I did, two of the Americans I did see, we were talking about that, and they were saying that America is the fourth largest tourist group that comes to this country. And I'm like, well, if they are, where they at? Because I didn't see them. Maybe they don't come to this area. So, with Spirit closing, what are your comments? Like, what do you think? What do you think about Spirit closing its doors? Like, it is farewell, Spirit. They ain't coming back. And the only low cost carrier we have now is Frontier. And Frontier, like, what are they doing besides charging people baggage fees at the door to make extra money? Because they just went before Congress about that tactic that they use. Um, but I didn't have an issue with Spirit. Like I said, I fly everybody. I went to Indonesia and it was cheaper for me to leave out of LAX. So I took a Spirit flight out of Cleveland to LAX because I think it was, like I said, cheap again. And because the Spirit flight was cheap, I then got on Singapore Airlines, which was an excellent airline carrier. Like all of the Asian carriers. And what does this mean? You know what? This just brought up another conversation. What does this mean with Spirit closing for low cost carriers in other countries? So I was recently on, there is an airline company that leaves out of Indonesia, and they look exactly like Spirit. I mean, the colors are the same, the writing that they use is the same, everything looks the same. And they, I wonder, what does this mean for them? What does it mean for Vietjet Airlines, which is another low cost carrier? They are based in the Vietnam area. What does it look? What does Spirit closing its doors? Because Spirit has had a huge impact on other countries, and other countries having low cost carriers to transport their citizens, to transport tourists. What does that look like moving forward? Are these companies in other countries going to learn from some of the mistakes that Spirit made? Will that information become public documentation? Um, it's like so sad. Like, you want to get away from the weekend, get away for the weekend, last minute. You could just go look to see what was the cheapest flight from your city to another city on Spirit, right? You want to prepare, like, I want to go to the beach for today. I know people. So historically, my family and I have gone to um, the Food and Wine Festival at Disney. I know people who would get on a Spirit flight first thing in the morning and go to Orlando. They would go to Disney for the day, and then they'd come back to the airport on Spirit and go back home. So they spent their day at Disney. So what does that mean moving forward? Will people have that luxury of doing that? And no, if you pay $50 for a round trip ticket on Spirit to do it for the day, that does not negate, the fact that, oh, that's something only the wealthy do. No, it's something that people who enjoy doing a certain type of thing, that's what they do. And that's what Spirit did. They opened up the doors for people to not have an excuse on why they could not see the world. They opened up the door. They went out of the country. They established more flights, more routes. They went from Fort Lauderdale to a lot of Latin countries. It opened up the door to make travel accessible. And when you close the door to making travel accessible, then we're back at square one again. Um, do I feel like their model is doable? Yeah. And I think every business makes mistakes? Of course, they do. I have a business. I've made mistakes. I'm sitting in a training now, and the lady is talking about raise your hand because you could be the biggest mistake in your business. And I'm like, I know there are some things that I do in my business that makes me the biggest mistake, and I do want to correct them. I do want to rectify them. I want my business to grow. Is that the same situation that Spirit have? Change their Will they change their name? And will they come out with a new color? And will they learn from the mistakes that they did that got them in this situation, that they'll say, "Hey, we can try this over again," because there are a group of people who want to travel. And thank you, honey, Hanny. Thank you, Hanny. But there are a group of people who want to travel. They want to see the world. They may not make, 6 figures a year. They may only make 5 figures a year, but it doesn't negate the fact that they have the ability to access the world. And with the world being flat, you can see something on the internet as a traveler, but when you see it in person, it just sparks something within you. There is like this, it's like, wow, I made it. I can look back on my life, on experiences that I've had and that I had the pleasure of having as a younger person. My first trip out of the country was actually to Mexico. It was to Cancun. It was on an EF tour, and we got to climb Chichen Itza. Like, I have pictures of me and my cousin at the top. We got to go inside and see this brass statue. They told us not to take pictures, but we took pictures anyway. Well, I took a picture. And they stop people from climbing up because people would try to kill themselves at the top of Chichen Itza. But I have pictures. I should go get the pictures because I just saw them recently, of me just at the top of Chichen Itza. And I took one of my cousin, and I don't even know. I was talking to my aunt, his mom, today, and I don't even know if she knows that I still have these pictures. I have so many pictures from travel experiences that just, and I paid for me to go to Cancun. My parents didn't pay. Could my parents probably have paid? Of course, they probably could have paid. But I paid for me. I got a job and I paid for me to go on this EF tour. I asked my cousin if I could come, if they could add me to the group, and they did. And I paid for the entire trip. That was my first experience leaving the country basically by myself. I've flown as a child to California because my aunt lives out there. But Spirit allowed people to have those same experiences that I had as a kid. It allowed my son to have that experience of traveling to California by himself. Um, he was not an unaccompanied minor because I think he was 17 at the time, 17 or 16. I can't remember because he went to Japan by himself. That's a whole nother story within itself for $75. And stayed there for 4.5 weeks and enjoyed. I like sushi. My son don't like sushi, but when he went to Japan, he was like, "Oh, this sushi is so good." And this was before COVID that my son went to Japan for 4.5 weeks. But with Spirit, and the people were friendly. They weren't rude. They weren't disrespectful. I tend to think our other low cost carrier is kind of rude because they're just trying to money gouge everybody. But I think there are some things to learn. What I would encourage somebody who wants to travel to do is what I would encourage. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate those words. That was kind of you. What I would encourage somebody is that think about where you want to go. Check flights, I didn't always have money, and I can say I was poor. I can honestly say I was poor as an adult, but it was because of my decisions that I ended up being poor. I was not raised poor. I did not live a poor life, but it was choices that I made that allowed me to be poor, and decisions that I made that allowed me to accept the responsibility for my choices and say, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to work out." But I always made a way. I always made a way. I always thought about what I wanted to do. There is nothing wrong with driving. I have driven to Yellowstone from Cleveland, Ohio. I've driven to Yellowstone National Park from Cleveland, Ohio. I don't even know where I stayed at, to be honest. I think I stayed in Chicago, but probably not. I've driven from Yellowstone to Cleveland and from Cleveland to Yellowstone and from Yellowstone to Cleveland. So when I went to Yellowstone, I went up, and then when I came back from Yellowstone, I went down. I've seen Mount Rushmore. I drove to route Mount Rushmore. I drove me and my children to Mount Rushmore so I could see Mount Rushmore because that's something I've always wanted to do. You still have a car. As long as you're in the United States, you can drive anywhere you want to go. That has not stopped. That's not going to end. Can you price out how much it's going to cost you to fill up your tank and drive to wherever it is, and how much will it cost if you pre-plan the trip to go to this state? Yes, you can. The mileage is in the book that they give you for your car. And if you don't see it in the car, then it's online and it's accessible for you. But you all of this information, and then you just plan it out. Okay, can I make it to, you can go to California. It takes 24 hours to get to California. Exactly 24 hours. How do I know that? Because I mapped it out before. Have I ever driven to California? No. But what I've heard is if you drive to California, you're going to do that once in your lifetime. You're going to do that one time and one time only. You never going to do it again. Will I drive to Mount Rushmore again in my life? No, I will not. That's why I took tons of pictures. So not only I could have them, but my children can have them. I only have 11 states to go, and I have seen every state in the United States. Right now, one of the states that's not mainland that I have not seen is Hawaii. I've been to Alaska before. I've not been to Idaho. I've not been to New Mexico. I've not been to North Dakota. I've not been to Portland, Washington. Not Portland. I'm sorry, Oregon. Portland is a city. I have not been to New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Maine. Oh, thank you. I wish the same thing for you. I really do. I mean that sincerely. Um, but yeah, you can plan out your life. You can say, hey, I want to go to, like, I want to go to Maine and I want to go to the Lobster Fest in Maine. And I want to go up to Montreal too. I ain't gonna even sit up here and act like this ain't something I want to do. I do want to do that because my favorite restaurant is in Montreal. It's called Le Avenue. They have the best brunch in the world to me. If you, I mean, this is the best brunch, and they have several locations now in Montreal. But to me, that's something that I want to do. I want to drive through the New England states. I've been to Connecticut. I've been to Rhode Island. I've been to Massachusetts. I have not been to Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. But I want to drive through the New England states. I want to see, I want to have that experience. I've not been to, I forget what else. It's just something simple. Oklahoma is another state I have not been to. It's not high on my list to go to, but I haven't been there. And I think that's it. But if that's not 11, I know the 11 is just we running out of time. But I had booked a Frontier Go Pass because I wanted to go to all these states. Like they had flights for the cheap to go to like North Dakota. And I figured I could go to North Dakota for the weekend, go chill at a national park in the summer. It would probably be beautiful. Say I've been to North Dakota, driven through, and voila, I'm done with North Dakota because I drove all the way through South Dakota because that's how I had to get to Mount Rushmore. So we stopped in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And the other thing that I would say is if you choose to travel via car, make sure you stop and you plan out where, like, if you have a Costco card or a Sam's Club card, because that's where you're going to get the cheapest gas in the United States. You're not going to get it at a gas station. It will only be at Costco or a Sam's Club. So make sure you strategically stop, in cities and where these Costco locations were. And that trip to Yellowstone National Park, that actually prepared me. Like when I stopped in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, there was a Costco there. So I was able to fill up my tank there. But make sure this is Glistening July. We talk about all things related to travel. Every video you see on this website, I've actually been there. This is not somebody else's footage that I took and posted as my own. These are places that I've traveled to. Hello, Fernando. How are you today? So this is authentic content. This is not me being somebody that I'm not. This is me being who I am. I love to travel. If I could travel, my dream job is to just travel and go to hotels and stay in hotels and give people honest reviews. That is my dream. That is my absolute dream. I like good customer service. I like it when people are friendly and nice because that's who they are, not because they're trying to put on a show for you and this is their job. They're genuinely nice. They genuinely like their job and it shows when they greet you. So, not a Disney show, but this is just who they are. I recently stayed in Lombard, Illinois. It wasn't recently, it was last year because Last Chance is there. That's one of my favorite stores in the United States. Last Chance. There's only two in the country, one in Lombard, Chicago, and one in Phoenix, Arizona on Camelback. And the one in Phoenix is way better than the one in Chicago. So, if you go to Phoenix, Arizona, and you go to Last Chance, you're gonna need to buy you a piece of luggage because there's gonna be so much stuff in there that you're gonna be like, oh man, I need to buy this, I need to buy that, I need to buy this. Hello, Michael Mueller. How are you this evening? Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. And tell me, what are your thoughts? I'm here not to just talk to you, but you could talk to me. What are your thoughts on Spirit? Do you like Spirit? Did you not like Spirit? Are you glad they're closing? It's never a good day when a business closed. Think about the employees. Think about that person who woke up this morning, who got dressed for work, who was at work, drove to work, and was notified, unfortunately, today is your last day. Or they saw the clip from the Transportation Security Administration that said, do not go to the airport if you have a Spirit flight. What you mean? I gotta be home. Like, what do you mean don't go to the airport? What am I supposed to do? And they're out of the country, or they don't have the funds. They didn't plan for Spirit to be closed. What about that person? Where's our compassion at for people who, they want to try something different, and this just happened to be the wrong time to try something different. I'm not saying to always give up. I'm just saying, what about that person? And I hope that these other airline carriers are able to step in, such as United, American, Delta, JetBlue, Southwest, and assist and aid these individuals, these families. You know, I know a hub for Spirit was Orlando. I hope they're able to step in because once those flights leave, like they're gone. It's no coming back. So this is Glisten in July. We talk about all things travel related. Follow us here on YouTube. I have not been on here in a long time. I do miss coming on here and talking about my travel experiences and encouraging others to travel and see the world and try new things. But yeah, I don't have any comments. Any comments? Any comments? What are your thoughts on Spirit? What are your thoughts? That's what we're talking about tonight. We're not talking about, anything negative. You got something negative to say, this ain't the channel for you. No way. It's other people out there that you can be negative with and leave your negative comments with. But we're here to talk about solutions. Where is your next trip? Where are you going? Are you going on a trip? Are you going on a road trip? There's nothing wrong with a road trip. I actually miss driving more. I miss driving. And the reason why I miss driving and doing road trips is because you get to listen to the music you like for extended periods of times with limited interruption. You get to call people on the phone and talk to them uninterrupted because all you doing is looking at trees in the car in front of you and stopping to get gas, and talk to people and have conversations with them or just sing the songs that you like in your car. You get to drive for hours with no music and just clear your thoughts because guess what? You ain't looking at nothing but trees. If it's the wintertime, you ain't seeing nothing. If it's in the northern part of the country, you ain't seeing nothing but snow. So the fact that you get to travel, and see how beautiful our country is, will this inspire more people to see how beautiful the United States is? We have a beautiful country, with Spirit closing their doors. Will they be able to, just understand the beauty of our country and be able to explore more? Or will this cause them to stay shut in? Because if we shut down again, guess what? I'm going to travel because everybody going to be in the house and the prices are going to be low and businesses are going to need people to keep them afloat. So they're going to have to charge something. They're going to charge something for you to come stay at their hotel. They're going to charge something for you to come they're going to give you some perk or some freebie for you to come to their amusement park or for you to come to their restaurant. They're going to do something. Um, and I've always traveled when the economy was in recession, to be honest with you, because it was like that was at the time when it was the cheapest. This is when we really can afford to travel. No, I'm not staying in the house. COVID, the the disease, the last time we shut down, it taught us one thing, that we need to go into a hotel room and clean. We need to use disinfectant wipes. We need to use Lysol spray. We need to use soap and water. We need to take towels. That one lady, I follow her, Operation Nikki, she put me to shame. Like she got everything. She got the little machine that clean the sheets. She bring her own sheets. I'm like, okay. I at least trust the sheets that they got on the bed. She like, no, this is not gonna do. I'm gonna bring my own sheets to put on the bed. She got a washing machine. She got a way to dry the stuff. So yeah. So again, make sure you comment, leave a comment on this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And Spirit, I just want to say thank you. Um, I thank you for the opportunities you allowed me to not only have, but you allowed me to give my children. It was great and it was well appreciated. You were there as a company when I needed you the most, based off of my income. I can honestly say that. Even when I could afford to not fly Spirit, I would still fly Spirit if they was the cheapest, if it was a direct flight. So I don't have anything bad to say about them. Were their seats comfortable? No, but the big comfy seats in the front were comfortable. Did I like the fact that they changed what they did? You know what they did, and nobody's talking about this. They changed how United, Delta, and American operated. They changed how they operate. I remember when I was a kid, you used to get a full meal on a flight going from the East Coast to the West Coast. Now they don't give you nothing but some chips and soda and drink. And now they even have basic economy tickets where they used to just have economy tickets, but it was because of Spirit and Frontier, you now see these basic economy tickets that limit what you have. So there have been things that Spirit has influenced on these other carriers. And it's never, a US company is never going to go backwards and say, yeah, okay, we're going to start feeding people now when they go from East Coast to West Coast. Now it's this huge push for everybody to be in first class. First class has always filled up. Even when I was a little kid, it was never where first class was not filled in. Even if they have to put an employee in first class, guess what they're going to do? They're going to fill up first class. They're going to put an employee in a first class seat. Don't forget that. Guess there will be some people who own businesses sitting in first class, but there will also be some people who are just employees of the company who are in that first class seat. That's not going to change. First class will always be full. They will never be an instance where you never see a first class seat. They will give it to somebody free for the illusion that first class is booked up. That's just a business model. It's not going anywhere whatsoever. So Spirit did change some things. Spirit changed the fact that we used to have bags go for free in the United States. And guess what? Now we paying $35 and $40 for our bag to be underneath when that used to be a free service. Technology has improved. Now in some carriers, you can track your bag. You know where your bag at, so they can't lose your bag no more. What else did Spirit change? The paying for the seat. Now all the carriers, if you don't have a certain ticket, all the carriers tell you, oh, you have to pay for your seat. Pay for my seat. This used to be free. Or you can wait till check-in and we'll assign your seat. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna wait to check in and assign my seat. Because as long as I get there, I don't care where I sit at on the plane. And then too, on top of that, I'm looking at the flight load anyway. If this is a packed flight, I don't want to be on this flight anyway. Because I want to be able to pick my seat wherever I want. I just took this international flight and I looked at the flight load. I looked at how many seats were taken when I got my flight and how many seats were open. I strategically set myself in an area where I wouldn't have nobody near me. Then when I got to the airport, I asked the man, I said, is this a full flight? Do you have any vacant rows available where I won't have to sit by nobody? He said, I sure do. I said, could you change my seat to that row? He said, no problem. He changed my seat. A lady heard me ask that. She was like, oh, do you have any more rows like that? Can you do the same thing for me? He was like, no, ma'am, that was my last seat. So basically, I had a whole row to myself. To me, that's a first class flight, even though I was in economy. I was in main cabin. But to me, that's a first class flight. I didn't pay the price. I could put my feet up. They gave me some slippers to put on my feet. They gave me a pillow, a blanket. I'm on the plane for 14 hours from Detroit, and I'm enjoying this whole road. I don't have to worry about falling asleep on the person next to me or the person next to me falling asleep or asking somebody, can you get up so I can go to the bathroom? I can get up as much as I like, how much as I want. Um, yeah, there have been some things that we have learned from Spirit Airlines, and again, that other carriers are using now, and they will continue to use. You know, the service in America on airlines has gotten bad. You go to these Asian countries, they feed you the whole time you on the flight. You ain't paying for no bag either. The whole flight. Um, So yeah, all right, that's it for this evening. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Thank you for everybody who subscribed. I really appreciate you. All right, take care. Bye bye. Now, this is my last time. I ain't done this in a long time. All right, up here.